Good morning. How's everyone doing? Good, good. It's a beautiful day out there. Hopefully, you guys can sing along. I've sang a lot this week, but I'd love if you guys could stand and sing with me and sing louder than me. And yeah, we'll get this started. The song's called Sweetly Broken. To the cross I look, to the cross I sing. Of its suffering I do drink, of its work I do sing. For on it my Savior, both bruised and crushed, showed that God is love, and then God is just. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, wholly surrendered. What a priceless gift, undeserved life have I been given through Christ crucified. Called me out of death, you called me into life. I was under your wrath. Through the cross I'm reconciled. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, wholly surrendered. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, wholly surrendered. Of the cross I must confess, how wondrous your redeeming love, and how great is your faithfulness. At the cross you beckon me, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, only surrendered. At the cross you beckon me, yeah, draw me gently to my knees, and I am so lost for words, so lost in love. I'm sweetly broken, only surrendered. Slow down, take time, breathe in He said he'd reveal what's to come. The thoughts in his mind always higher than mine. He'll reveal all to come. So take courage, my heart, and stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your silence unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. Sing praise, my soul. Find strength and joy. Thanks, keep you on. Do not forget your great faithfulness. He's finished all he's begun. So take courage, my heart, and stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. So take courage, my heart, and stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. You who hold the stars, who call them out by name, will surely keep the promise to me, and I'll rise in victory. You who hold the stars, who call them out by name, will surely keep your promise to me, and I'll rise in your victory. So take courage, my heart, and stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. So take courage, my heart, and stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting, yeah. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. He's in the waiting. 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 All right, you will be seated.
Good morning. We want to welcome you here today. So it's August. You know, there's an interesting fact about August. At least I find it interesting. August is the only month of the year that does not have a legal holiday of some sort. August is kind of that month, and if you have kids, you know this for sure, and even if you don't have kids, you kind of get this sense. August is that month of the year where we just we start to plan forward, right? You've got to get, the supplies for school or whatever. You try to get that last little bit of vacation time in. Maybe it's time to, take the screens out and all that good stuff, get ready for that next season of the year. But August is it's always about looking forward, looking forward, looking forward. And there's really nothing about August that distinguishes it as, this is August. August is full steam ahead for most of us. I mean, next weekend, we're moving my daughter into her apartment. So it's full steam ahead. It doesn't have a lot in and of itself. But it's a good, we need those 31 days to kind of prep for what's about to come. I mean, football season. And you don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. But as much as we look forward to things and we got to plan ahead and we do, there's something that Jesus asked his followers to do, and it's really about remembering. And it's really about looking back. And he asks us to do this on a regular basis. And we at Hidden Valley, we do it every month. We look back and we remember what Jesus did for us. We call it communion. It's something that Jesus did with his first group of followers. He gave them a piece of bread and he said, "This is my broken body. And when you do it, I want you to remember me." Pause the looking forward, pause the thinking about the next thing, pause the worrying about this. I want you to pause and remember that my body was broken for you. And then he took a cup. He said, "I want you to remember, look back. My blood was shed for you. I came to earth, I took a body, it was broken, my blood was shed. And I just want you to pause and remember that." So for the next 5 minutes or so, you've got the rest of the month of August to look forward, to think about September and October and all that stuff. I was at the store the other day and I saw my first Christmas display. We don't need to look forward to Christmas yet. But Jesus does ask us to look back. And so here's how we do communion if you're new here at Hidden Valley. In a moment, we're going to have another worship song. And when you're ready, when you've used these words to kind of prepare yourself to look back, you can go to either wall or in the back. It's all gluten-free. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. But just remember what Jesus did for you. We invite everyone who's a follower of Jesus to take communion. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look back. In a month where so many of us are stressed about looking forward, we're going to pause and we're going to look back. And we're going to do that. I'm going to pray, and then Jesse's going to come and lead us. And when you're ready, you can go and take communion and remember. So let's pray. God, I thank you for this opportunity to remember. We are so busy with looking forward, and we have to do that. We have responsibilities. We have things that need to get done, things that have to be in place. But we want to look back because that's what Jesus asked us to do. So we look back to Jesus. He took a body, and that body was broken for us. His blood was shed on our behalf. We can have a relationship with you because of what Jesus did for us. So God, we thank you for that. We remember it, and we praise you for what your Son did for us. In his name, amen.
1,000 stories of what you are like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night. She tell me that you're pleasing if I never alone. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know that we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say your word. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. 'Cause you're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. And you're perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, love so undeniable that I can hardly peace so unexplainable that I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, love. You're a good, good father. Is who you are. Is who you are. Is who you are. And I'm loved by you. Is who I am. Is who I am. Is who I am. You're a good, good father. Is who you are. Is who you are. Is who you are. And I'm loved by you. Is who I am. Is who I am. Is who I am.
The Gospel according to Luke. It's one of the earliest accounts of Jesus' life, and it's actually part one of a unified 2-volume work, Luke Acts. If you compare the opening lines of both of these books, it's clear that they come from the same author, and there are internal clues in the book of Acts, as well as an early tradition that identifies the author as Luke, the traveling companion and co-worker of Paul the Apostle, who we know was also a doctor. Luke opens his work with a preface telling us how and why he wrote this book. He acknowledges that there's many other fine accounts of Jesus' life out there, but he wanted to go back to the eyewitness traditions of as many early disciples as he could, in order to produce what he calls an orderly account about the things that have been fulfilled among us. Now that word fulfilled shows us why Luke wrote this account. For him, the story of Jesus isn't just ancient history. He wants to show how it's the fulfillment of the long covenant story of God and Israel, and bigger than that, of the story of God in the whole world.
Once again, good morning. I want to welcome the people who are here in Dodgeville. I want to welcome our Richland Center campus and those of you watching online, wherever you might be. Thanks for being here. So we have spent most of the summer in the doctor's office listening to Luke. We specifically chose the book of Luke. There's the two that he wrote, but we've looked at the book of Luke. And I want to remind you, just like that video did, he's a doctor. And so when you get to a lot of the things that Luke wrote, they're medical issues, because that was kind of, his thing. That's what he kind of noticed about people. And like a doctor, he was pretty precise. He just didn't take, this story, that story, kind of throw them together. He was very particular in the stories that he included and the things that he didn't include. In fact, he says it this way in Luke chapter 1, verse 3, and we looked at this verse several weeks ago, but he says this: "It seemed good to me also, having followed all things closely for some time past, to write an orderly account for you." In other words, Luke has really, and we've said this a lot of the time, but Luke has really taken the time to think, what do I want to say about Jesus? His book is the longest in the New Testament, but really it's still limited. And so he takes his time and he thinks, I want to say this, and then I want to say this, and then I want you to notice this about Jesus. He's pretty precise in what he does. And he's a doctor. And today, we're going to look at a topic that we would expect a doctor to talk about, and that's poor eyesight. Doctors concern themselves with your eyesight. There's specialists that you go to if you have an eye problem. And so Luke is going to talk about an eyesight problem that has lots of medical names. It has lots of different causes. But you and I know it by one fairly common phrase. He's going to talk about something called tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is this idea, that over time, what you see becomes less and less. The opposite of tunnel vision is peripheral vision. And you can see this is what happens over time. You see this much, and over time, it's really like you're looking through a tunnel. But the opposite is peripheral vision, and there's a real simple way to test your peripheral vision, your ability to see everything that's in front of you. And if you're sitting next to somebody, you need to apologize before you do this. But here's how you test your peripheral vision. You take your fingers, you put them here, and you keep looking forward. You don't cheat and turn your head, but you keep looking forward, and you just kind of go out. And you stop when you can no longer see your fingers. And if you did that and you stopped here, that's tunnel vision. But that's the ability, not turning your head, but the ability to look forward and still see things that are on the side and things that are in your world. That's the difference between peripheral vision and the medical problem. Like I said, it's got lots of great fancy medical terms, but we're really talking about tunnel vision. That over time, we see less and less of the world around us. But here's the twist that Luke kind of shares. He's not talking about physical tunnel vision. He's talking about it more in terms of spiritual or personal or relationship tunnel vision. In other words, sometimes over time, we can look forward and the people we see in our life become smaller and smaller and smaller. And we only begin to see people who are right there in front of us, who are the closest to us, who are the most like us. And over time, the people who are kind of on the fringes, the edges, the people who are different than us, we see less and less of those people. And Luke doesn't concern himself, and we're not going to concern ourselves with the causes of this. Well, what causes me not to see more people in my life that He doesn't talk about the causes, but you and I know the causes, right? We get a little selfish. We get a little concerned about our stuff. We don't want to notice this person. We don't want to notice there's, lots of causes. But Luke's just going to share a story about Jesus that helps us do this a little bit more. To see the people who aren't so much like us, whom some of them have more than us. They seem to have it more together, and some are people, we may not say this, but honestly, they're kind of the nobodies that we overlook from time to time. Because in the story today, Jesus interacts with two people who are really on the extreme of what you and I see. One of them, she's a somebody. She was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She's got this great life in front of her. I mean, it's almost guaranteed. She was kind of almost handpicked. It's going to happen for her. It's all going to be good. And the other person, she couldn't be more opposite. She's the one that we overlook. She's the one, and you say, what's her name? I think I recognize her, but I don't know. And she doesn't have the silver spoon. She doesn't even have a spoon. But Jesus had this amazing ability, instead of having tunnel vision, to look and see people like this. So we're going to start with the girl who had everything. It starts in Luke chapter 8, verses 40 and 42. And here's the one who has everything. Now, when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue, and falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying. Now, before we talk about this girl, I'm a dad of daughters. And all three of my daughters are past the age of 12. I can't even imagine what Jairus felt. He was the ruler of the synagogue. It was kind of a political / religious position, but he was somebody in the community. He had a title. He had status. And you know what? None of that mattered. His daughter, his 12-year-old daughter, was dying. I don't even want to know what that feels like. And the text says he came, and even though he's got status, he's a person in the community, he's got a reputation, he just falls at Jesus' feet and he's crying, my daughter's dying. All that other stuff really doesn't matter. But this 12-year-old girl, she's pretty significant too, but different culture, so don't get squeamish, but she was 12, which means she was almost marrying age. Yeah, different culture. And marrying into this family, yeah, that would have been something, because there would have been some status that came with marrying her. And this story, it's found in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And in the other accounts, we're told some more details about her. In her own right, she was a special girl. She was special, the kind of special that when she walked into a room, everybody knew she was special. There's just some things that are said about her that, yeah, all kids are great, but she was special. And she was dying. And the whole crowd around Jesus knew that somebody special, somebody important was dying. You know anybody in your life who's the somebody? You know, they got a nicer car than you. They have a nicer home than you. Their spouse's teeth are cleaner than your spouse's. They just seem to have, their kids are good. They seem to have it together. It just seems like it all falls right for them. And sometimes you don't want to see them because that's not what I have. They've got it all. But you know what this story reminds us? And granted, the daughter dying is pretty big deal, but here's what we need to remember about people who are somebodies. Everybody, even somebodies, have needs. Now, the people in your life probably do not have a 12-year-old daughter dying. This one is obvious and huge and scary. But you know what? The people that you have and I have in our lives, the people who are somebodies, the people who have it all together, who have the best this and the best that and never seem to have problems, they have needs. Maybe not as obvious, probably not as obvious as this need. But you might have to do some digging. You might have to be willing to see them, to look a little bit. Everybody, even somebodies, they have needs. There's things that are missing in their life. Maybe not this big, but everybody has a need. So Jesus, followed by this big crowd, is going to go take care of a somebody, which is what we expect him to do, right? Because she matters. She's important. Nobody is going to keep Jesus from doing this until a nobody shows up. Because this is what happened as this crowd is moving towards the house in verses 43 and 44. And there was a woman, she doesn't even have a name, who'd had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she spent all her living on the physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. So Jesus is walking, and you can imagine the closer they get to the house, they're going a little bit faster because this is important because somebody needs help. And a nobody walks up to Jesus and just kind of reaches out and just like touches and then runs off to the side. And I don't want to be crass, I don't want to be mean, I don't want to be heartless, but she'd had an issue of bleeding for 12 years. It could have waited. I mean, compared to a 12-year-old dying and a 12-year-old problem with bleeding, it's clear which one needs the most attention. I hope you don't think I'm horrible, but it's pretty clear who needs the most attention, right? So here's something you need to know about this 12-year issue of bleeding. And according to the Old Testament law, if a woman who was having a problem like this, when you approached her, she needed to say this to you: unclean, unclean. So you wouldn't get too close. So every time for the past 12 years, every time you got close to talk to this woman, hey, how you doing, Jill? Hey, how you doing, Martha? I don't know what her name was. This is what she said: unclean. So for 12 years, no one had said this woman's name. And you know what? You probably forget their name after 12 years. No one had hugged this woman. No one had encouraged this woman. No one had put their arm around her and said, how you doing? How's life? And just to bring that into some perspective, that's you if the last time someone showed you that they mattered, it was the year 2011. It had been about 4,500 days since someone had noticed her. I mean, you look up the word nobody in the dictionary, her picture's there. She's a nobody. And of course, you know, she touches Jesus, she runs off, and because Jesus is doing something important, he just continues going on, right? Because he had somebody to take care of, and nobody was going to stop him. But Jesus did something that makes no sense. You know what he did? He stopped. Because this is what it says next. Remember, he's surrounded by this crowd of people moving. Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing in on you." In other words, they said, "Duh, Jesus, lots of people touching you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him. And now she had been immediately healed. Jesus stops. And I pictured this scene. You know how Domino's, when you're like walking in a crowd, you know, he stops and people like falling around. It's like little kids playing soccer. And Jesus just stops. Who touched me? And you know, his followers were like, look around, Jesus. There's a crowd. Lots of people have touched you. And he just stops and he stands there. And I don't know, the Bible doesn't tell us. I don't know how long it took for her to get the courage to come forward, but I'll bet you she didn't just run up right away. After 12 years of being a nobody, it's kind of hard to step up in front of people, right? But he waited, and he waited. And Mark tells us a little detail about what she told him. He says this in Mark 5:33. It says, she told him the whole truth. The whole story. Now, I don't know about you, but after 12 years of people not talking to me, I don't care if you're, you know, the biggest loner on the planet, you love your alone time, but after 12 years and someone's listening and you tell them the whole truth, I think it takes a while. I think you kind of start slowly talking and then you realize, oh my goodness, he's listening to me. The whole story takes a while to tell. And she just keeps telling them, this is what life has been like for 12 years. You know what this reminds us? In terms of the people you and I see on a regular basis, sometimes people need us to stop and to listen. There are people in your life that just need you to stop and listen. Not to fix their problem. Her problem was already fixed. There are people who aren't looking for you to give them an answer. They just want you to listen. I am sure she was glad that the bleeding was gone. But he listened to her. And I know that you and I, we've got response. It's August. You know, we have to get to September as fast as we can. We got to get this done. But there's people in your life who just need you to stop and listen and not fix it. Just stop and listen. And yeah, we have responsibilities. Jesus had a pretty big responsibility when he stopped. You know, he was going to go help a 12-year-old who was dying. Do you know anybody that just needs you to stop and listen? Jesus healing her was a big deal. I think it was a bigger deal that he stopped and listened. And you know, not just as individuals do we need to stop and listen, but sometimes churches, we don't do it very well. We need to stop and listen sometimes. What do people really, really need? So she speaks. And if you're in the crowd, you know what you're thinking. Jesus, somebody needs your help. Can we get moving? Because somebody matters. So this is what happened next in Luke 8:48. He said to her, daughter. Oh yeah, there's a daughter out there somewhere. He's talking to this woman. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. And then the story takes a little turn. While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore. Well, that's a twist in the story, because Jesus isn't supposed to allow somebodies to die. And it's not a coincidence. He called this woman a daughter, but the daughter died. And I don't know about you, but I'll just be honest. If I was the dad, I don't think I would have liked Jesus very much. I don't think I would have wanted to look him in the eye. But before we figure out what happened with the daughter who died, and the reason we don't like Jesus for the moment, hang on, he's a good guy. Spoiler alert, he's going to raise her from the dead. But before that, why did he call this woman daughter? He'd already healed her. He'd already listened to her. Why did he call her daughter when this daughter needed something? Why? Because you know what else sometimes people need if you just look around a little bit? This is what people need. People need to feel included, not excluded. We're really good at making people feel excluded. Because of the way they vote, where they work, where they live, the football team they like, the school their kids go to, we are really good at finding reasons to exclude people. She just needed to be included. He called her daughter. This nobody was a daughter. Anybody in your life, look around for a moment. Anybody in your life just need to be included, not excluded. In churches, we don't do a really good job of this. I remember before I was married, it was like every single event at church that I went to was 8 couples and you. That was the title of it, or at least it felt that way. You know what, in churches, people should feel included. Singles should be included. Blended families should be included. No kids should be included. I said that wrong. Kids should be included. Couples with no kids should be included. Elderly should be included. Those who've got it figured out, those who don't have it figured out should be included. Churches should include people. Far too often churches do this, and we start to exclude people, and we only see people who look just like us and think just like us. Jesus just included her. Do you know anybody that you could include? But if we were there that day, we would have thought Jesus had failed. Come on, Jesus, how do you let the 12-year-old somebody die? There's something wrong with that, Jesus. You don't do that. Well, he didn't do that. Because here's how the story goes on. Jesus, on hearing this, that the daughter had died, answered him, do not fear, only believe, and she will be well. I'm sorry, but if I was Jairus, I would not have listened to Jesus at that moment. And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him except Peter and John and James and the father and mother of the child. And all were weeping and mourning for her. But he said, do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, child, arise. And her spirit returned, and she got up at once, and he directed that something should be given her to eat. And her parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened. Don't miss this. The woman who was a nobody, Jesus publicly, for all to see, showed her value and included her and listened to her for everybody else to see. You should do that for her. But for the person who was a somebody, he does this miracle and he says, yeah, she was just sleeping. Don't tell anybody what really happened. She didn't need as much publicity as the woman. And I would have wanted Jesus to tell everybody, I just raised this 12-year-old, and he would have got fame. But you know what? Jesus isn't looking for fame. He never has. You know what he's looking for? He's looking for followers. So what in this second half of this story where Jesus raises a little girl from the dead, what can I follow? What can you follow? Because I'm pretty sure I won't be raising anybody from the dead this week. But if I do, you'll hear about it. Did you notice what he did? It's just a little small detail in this story. Did you notice what Jesus did that you and I could do? He took her by the hand. Sometimes people need a hand up. People just need a hand up. Now, this does not mean that if you go to a funeral this week, I want you to walk up to the casket and go, I will disown you if you do that. Scott told me it would work. No, you don't have the power that Jesus has, but you can give people a hand up. You can encourage people. You're not Jesus. Your hand up thing isn't nearly as powerful. But that's what he gave her, a hand up. Anybody you could encourage? Not a hand out, but just a hand up. Help, point the right direction, put a smile on their face. Can you give somebody a hand up? Not the same outcome as what Jesus did, but can you give a hand up? So this week, I was working on this message on Monday, and I decided on something that I would do the rest of this week. Now, these people are not nobodies, but they're people that I overlook often. So I go to a gym just about every day, and there's always people who are sitting there that you have to swipe into, and they say hi and let you in, and those people, when they're not there sitting there, they're kind of like walking around the gym, putting away the weights that some of you leave out, which is wrong, by the way, and you should ask God to forgive you. And then they're mopping the floor because, once again, you all sweat all over the place and don't clean up after yourself. So they're constantly working. And honestly, I've been going to this gym for about 7 years, and I know the names of 2 of these people. So this week I decided I'm going to give them a hand up. So I asked each of them their name. And when they were doing some cleaning, and stuff, I'd move some of the weights that you left out. There was one lady who's an older woman. She was putting away 45-pound plates, and so I stopped what I was doing, went over and did it for her. She was so excited, I'm pretty sure she wrote me into her will. But it's amazing what it means to just give a hand up to people. They're not nobodies. They're just people I overlook on a pretty regular basis. They're people who, because I live my life too much like this, I don't see them. Anybody in your life, you kind of have to look around a little bit. If I open my eyes, do you see anybody who has a need? Whether they're a somebody, a nobody, overlooked, whatever, do you see anybody who has a need that maybe you could meet? Probably not 12-year-old dying seriousness, but a need. Anybody in your life, if you kind of take and do this, they just might need you to stop and listen. Not to fix it, not to tell them they're wrong, not to tell them what they have to change, but just to stop and listen. Anybody you could include them. You could give them a hand up. Here's the amazing thing about Jesus. If he had lived his life this way, only seeing people who were perfect like him, and only seeing people who agreed with everything, and none of us would have a relationship with God. Jesus had this amazing ability to his peripheral vision, the people he saw in his life, he saw everybody. And that's simply kind of what he asks of you and I. You know, he sees the good in you. He also sees our failings. He sees our sin. He knows where we come up short. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says this about Jesus. For our sake, he made him to be sin who knew no sin, that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Jesus looked at us and knew what we needed. We needed his life in exchange. And if you've ever wondered, do I matter to Jesus? I mean, am I a nobody? Does he even see me? He sees you. Because he saw the woman who ran up and didn't even have a name. He saw her, he sees you, and he died for you. But for the rest of us, here's a challenge for this week. To kind of do what I did last week. Just do some sightseeing in your life. Who's there? Who's on this side that sometimes you, and who's on this side that sometimes you, who's there who just needs me to see him a little bit more? Let's pray. God, I thank you for Jesus. I thank you that he sees people who seem to have it all together, like Jairus and his daughter. He sees people who get overlooked, like a woman who had not talked to anybody for 12 years. God, I pray that we would see those people on earth, because they are there. But it's so easy to get wrapped up in our own stuff and to forget them. Thank you that Jesus saw us, saw what we needed, and died in our place. And if there's somebody, Father, who's never made that decision, whether they're here in person or watching, that they'd simply say this: God, thank you for sending Jesus. He saw what I needed, and he died in my place. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Scott. Good morning, everyone. A few announcements before we let you go today. So last week we introduced our Love Our Church Serving Focus with an insert in your program of projects that we're asking our attenders to participate in this month. So we'd love to thank everybody who signed up for the projects last week, but we're still in need of 2 projects. So you have that insert again in your program today. So we are still in need of volunteers for our Thursday, this coming Thursday, August 10th, as we host the band Winona Avenue here on our grounds. And we're also looking for volunteers for August 20th as we go through the chairs and do some housekeeping here in the building. So please take a look at the insert in your program today and consider if you can help us on either of those days. Fill out your contact information and put this insert in either of the offering boxes as you leave today. So please join us here tomorrow, Monday, August 7th at 6 p.m. for our Power of Prayer meeting. God delights when we talk to him, and he is available for you any minute of the day, anywhere, and at any time. So we also have the privilege of praying together and praying for others. So join us this first Monday of every month for our hour of prayer, fellowship, community, and encouragement. Please plan on joining us, and let's watch God move together. So again, Thursday, don't forget that Winona Avenue will be putting on a free concert here on our grounds starting at 7 p.m. J&J's Curbside Grill and Krieg's Candy will be set up in the parking lot at 6 o'clock with great burgers and treats for purchase. The extended weather looks like it should be a great night to be outdoors, so bring your chairs and blankets to sit on as we enjoy this uplifting concert. What a great event to invite a friend to, so be thinking of who you can invite. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a short series on the book of Jonah, and we're going to call it, okay, you guys got to say it with me, Here, Fishy, Fishy, Fishy. So we thought it would be a fun way to have, to just send us your fish pictures, and we'll use them in the upcoming video for that series. So you can email them to me at lori@hiddenbee.com, or if you're friends with me on social media, you can send them to me through Messenger. I need to have those photos by Sunday, August 20th, and I just want to thank you in advance for being a part of the fun. So as we wrap up today, fill out your connections card that you were given this morning. Let us know that you're here with us. Let us know if you're a first-time attender, as we would love to send you a small gift to thank you for joining us today. Let us know if you would like to receive our weekly newsletter, or if you have a prayer request. So notice the question at the bottom of the page this week that asked, do I treat some buddies and nobodies the same? That's a good question to ponder today. So you can drop your connections card, that insert, and your offering envelope into either of the offering boxes by the double doors as you leave today. Pastor Scott will be up front after the service if you would like to meet or have him pray with you this morning. If you're able, please help us stack up the chairs before you leave. They do get stacked 8 high, and the legs do need to line up. There's some trolleys here along the wall to move the stacks to the front and back walls. So thank you for helping us to put away these chairs so that our space can be used during the week. My name is Lori, and on behalf of all the staff and volunteers here today, I want to thank you for making Hidden Valley a part of your Sunday morning. It is our hope that the service this morning has been a blessing to you. Take a minute to say hi to your neighbor before you leave today. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll see you next Sunday.